Welcome back to the rig review, and today we're going to take a look at the Ninja rig, and that rig you can find on my Animation Buffet site alongside many other rigs that I review, so check out that site for your hub of all things rigs. And you can of course buy it on the Built by Colossus page. You have Ninja, I'm going to take a look at it now. I'm going to take a look at Brawler and the Lizard later. And that is the rig. Controllers are on, as you can see, nothing in the layers. And as always, I'm going to start at the bottom here with the main controller, which looks like you can move everything around. There are no extra controllers here. You have this little thing that is not selectable, but there's an outside and there's an inside. And on the inside, as always, you can do those things where you just bring it down, and potentially that gives you more of a chest center of gravity for whatever reason if your character decides to fly around. But there's nothing there in terms of any type of resolution switching or anything, which is usually on main controllers. So that is that. So you got your props here, which I shall put to the side and look at the feet. Foot-wise, you got here your main controller, and this moves your foot around. Let's zoom out a bit. Always interesting to see. Yes, this one moves the knee around as well. Some rigs don't, but of course you have your pull vector here in terms of knee control. Going back to the foot here, let's move it down. You have your upper length, which a lot of rigs have, and then this for stretchiness, for cycles, all kinds of things. If you go in here, you have that inner controller, which you can move around as a what they call a sub controller, and you have rotations and translates. Then you have this one, which gives you the stretchiness. So if I take this leg and pull it, there is of course the stretchiness, as you can see, and this controller here will tell you nope, I don't want this. And bend bows on off, and bend bows are these guys, so you can move this around. And preserve volume, yes or no. So if you stretch, it will actually stretch, or you can keep the volume as it says here, which are cool functions. I like this. Going further down here, you have the roll heel. So as you do this, you have the pivot from back there. You can also translate, because if you look at those main controllers, usually they have foot roll and everything on those main controllers, but this one has this on this controller. So if you want to do this like that, that's how you do it for your toes. And even these guys, again, you can always move for a translate here, but you have that pivot out of here. Then you have the foot master control, and what that does is that when you pull it, that gives you actually the foot roll, the banking like this. If you need a different pivot, it is actually doing like that. I think that's the first time I'm seeing a rig that's built like this. There's no up and down, so you have these options. That's an interesting setup. Why not? And of course, this is on both sides. As we go up here, we have that bend bow here. And that bend bow here. There's one here. Let's not forget, you do have here translates, but you have also foot on off and roll on off. That's for your space. And you have a knee pin, and if you've watched my reviews, you know that I love knee pins and elbow pins. It's super helpful when you animate. Let's not forget, when you go back to this one, you have that, and this is your FK. So now that reveals the round controllers here, and you got your classic FK, which as you select, sometimes these controllers also have stretchiness. So if it looks like as you're moving into FK, there are no extra stretchy controllers. I mean, you can pull, you can still transit all of these if you want, just as a heads up. Let's go back to IK. Now moving up here, we have the hips, and they are nicely centered there. There's no shenanigans with offset pivots, so this is all good. Of course, you can translate as well. Moving up to the root, this is your classic root, right? Yeah, boop, 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 boop. But you can select here offset control, so that gives you another control for more control. Then as we go up here, you can select these all together, and you have your chest FK. Now, as I select these separately, you can see there's nothing else in the channels. There's nothing else to change. It seems like this is an FK only and no option for IK. Coming up to here, this is your clavicle that moves this, and it doesn't look like there is a auto clavicle function off. So let's see. So let's go to this controller here, and we have an IK FK switch. So I'm going to move this to IK, and you can see you got your stretchiness, which here you can change the length here, and even the wrist control That's an interesting controller here. But just to show you, as you go up here, there's nothing that happens in the clavicles. There's no auto clavicle function. Now with IK on, you still have these. You still have a lot of bend bow options. And you still have, let's move this here, like that. You still have your pull vector that gives you, again, all the space controls and the elbow pin, which I, of course, love. Now going back here and selecting IK-FK switch, you have your stretchiness on. So let's do this here. Move that. You do have stretchiness and you have bend bows on. You have preserve volume, which is again really, really cool. You have the auto twist. And by auto twist, I mean, if you take this and you rotate, you can see how everything starts to move here in terms of your deformations, but you can take this and go and not have it. It gives you some candy wrapping, but it's still good to have control over all of this. And then you have your fingers and you can switch these to IK. That is cool. I like that. You have your chest and the world. Again, these are space switchers. That is all very cool to see. I like this. Going closer here, you still have your sub control for your wrist. So you have your IK version to move things around, but you still have this. This will be very handy for constraints. Then of course you have your separate controllers for your fingers. Now if you go here, as you move this here, you can't translate. These are purely extra controllers. So you have scale. Okay, interesting. That's not what I was expecting. Scale, this seems more scale as in spreading and not as in scaling the fingers. Now let's just check here. You can't scale, but you can translate like this. Okay, but you can't make them thicker, but that's interesting. So that is technically a spread. Now rotations here are like this and like that. So you have master quick controllers. That's interesting. They're not rotating in the same axes or in the same direction, just as a caveat here. By the way, these are your options, including settings for a thumb follow. But let's not forget here, you have those extra controllers here as well for the base here of the fingers. So lots of goodies here. And this, of course, is on both sides. Now going up here, you have your lower neck here. But then right above, you have another one. That's interesting. I'll always see this here. And then if you select the outer one, this is your neck control here. And you go inside and it gives you another one. So lots of sub controllers, which is always very helpful. Let's zoom in a bit. Let's take the eyes, eye controllers. So you can see if it's like this, you have head, chest, and world. So I don't want it to follow the head, but I want it to follow the world. So if I now move the head, you can see how this stays, which is usually my preferred method there. You still have, of course, separate options to do this thing here for your eyes. That's all cool. Let's go a bit closer here. You have your jaw, if I can select it, there you go. All right. And you have all your rotations. You can see here, watch out, you got teeth going through. You have rotations like that. And you have, let me check here. You have all your translate controls just in case. So all that is there. Then you have this one, which moves around all of this. Again, watch out for the teeth. But in case something happens, just want to show you, you do have controllers here to move the teeth around, and you have an inner control just in case you have intersections. So you have this here, but you can't rotate. So this is purely just repositioning where that is. Selecting the upper one, you can see this is an upper lip control. There's some creasing there, so watch out how far you can go with this. Of course, this is top and bottom. Seems a bit more leeway on the bottom here. Now you do have those little ones, and with the little ones you can shape all of this into whatever you want. Of course, there are limits. You can see this in the geometry, but why would you go this far? Is it like some wind canal or something? In your face, so if you're just looking for the controllers on the face, these are to fine details. So you have this on the cheeks, close up, even on the side here. There are still lots of options. And of course you have your tongue controls here all the way, and these are the bottom teeth, like that. Going up, you have your fine controls for your eyes, so like you would do any blinks with that, but fine controls are always good. To the side here, you have your ears, 2 of them for extra control. You do have controls for your hair, at least for that front part. This is going to detach the head. No, that's not true. You can move this here, and it's going to be a pivot that leaves the bottom part there. So this one doesn't do anything, as you can see with the translate rotate. This is not a squash function, but what is usually on the main control is up here. So overall controllers on off, face controls on off, geometry on off, joint visibility, which I don't have on anyway. You can lock the geometry, so I can select this, and if you have this, you can't. And proxy, that's what I was looking for a faster version. You have that, and you have sword visibility on off. Now, speaking of swords, going here, you have one controller here, and if you go inside, again, you have another controller. Go here, and again, you have different kind of world space, and you have hands. I say no. No to the world, yes to the hand. It's going to be attached to the hand. But of course, you know, you can place this wherever you want, but it's going to be attached there, which is always a very welcome rig function. Now, I will save this to the end here because I was wondering about additional facial features. So select the top part. This is your squash. There you go. So you don't have it directly there, but you also have a bottom function with a limit. That's all cool. You have a chin function, so if you're into that type of thing, that also gives you a bit of that's pretty neat. It's kind of like your jaw function there. You got your overall smile, what I was talking about. So if you want an overall controller for smile, which seems pretty good in terms of deformations. And of course, you have these on both sides. This is your mouth here. This is your overall mover. You can only move so far until it breaks, which makes sense. Selecting this, you can't do anything. It's in the channel. So select this, rotate, and you can do your cheek puff. That's an interesting function here. So I guess if I do this, yes, cheek puffs there. You have an outer controller for your nose, and then you have a inner controller for that as well. Now, that being said, let me just check. If I rotate this, okay, you can do some sort of one-sided sneer, but you would have to move this around and then translate, I guess. Let me see. There is a nose curl in the channel. That's interesting. Doesn't do anything. So if I move this around and now I do this, doesn't do anything either. So I have to profess here ignorance. I don't know what that nose curl does. This might be a broken controller channel there. I will check with the rigger. I can post something in my pinned comment, of course. I would love to have a sneer, just like a separate, more detailed control on the nose though, like a nose flare and an overall sneer. Because again, these are cheeks and these are overall nose controls. If you want to go into more detailed facial stuff. Then on the side here, you have your blink. That's interesting rotation there. Let me see. That's not exactly, well, I guess you can rotate. So that's something to watch out. You have to rotate a little bit. It seems a bit wonky in where it's going. And to be honest, I would still love, well, I mean, you have it here. You have translates here if you want to do this through the channels. But interesting. Now, if you have this here, this is your eye to look around. And you have this is your overall eye sockets to move around. Now, you do have an option in this to blink. Now, so I want to make sure that everything is at 0 here. 0 here, 0 here, this is at 0, and this is at 0. And just to be fair, let's take this and 0 this out. So we are at 0 here. I select the outer one, I say blink. So I want to make sure that there's no gap. So here, if you want quick blinks, that is there, and there is a blink bias that will change where your lid goes down, so you don't have like a 50% closing in the middle. That's pretty cool though, I like that. Then you have your overall eye controller for both, if you don't want to use the big one. Then you have your overall eyebrow mover, and of course you have your inside that can push pretty far. At least that's pretty cool. You'll break the model, but it's always good to not have too many restrictions. So you can go down here, you can visually remodel this and do something like that. And then you go back up here, and then you want to do that and do something lower. Kind of pops up and down there. That seems pretty okay. Not that this is a great pose, but I'm just saying in terms of options, you're gonna see how it kind of starts breaking to the pupil there, but it's not too bad. Let's bring these all back to normal. Let's select all of this, and I say 0. That is that. The overall ring, you can reposition. You can parent that maybe to a face cam, whatever you want to do with it. That's pretty neat. And don't forget, as you have all those controllers, you always want to check what are the options in there. So you have your lip roll, that's also in here. For the nose, you have, again, the curl that doesn't do anything right off the bat. I will double check. On the side here, you got nothing. The cheeks got nothing. Nothing on the eyes, but here you have your scale. You can scale like this and scale like that. And of course, you can make this bigger here. There is nothing here on the side here. As we said here, you got the blink, and on the eyebrows, you have all the standard controllers, nothing else. The main controller, nothing here on the squash. That is it. And I believe that's that. So just let me see something here. If I bring this up here, rotate that hand around into whatever position, and now I'm using this controller. So I want to see some of these deformations here. That seems pretty okay. Let's move this down a little bit and move this out. Just kind of seeing what's happening. That seems pretty cool. I'm a big fan of IK and spline setups as well. I would love to see a, what's the word, an option just to have that. That's all interesting. Let me move this up because of this. Seems pretty good in terms of all these informations. Now, that being said, these don't have any scale, so just be mindful of that, but you can still take this and translate around for changes. But again, it's not a spline, so it's going to take everything with it. Just as a caveat, grabbing your foot here, maybe like that, and tweaking this here. Just looking at deformations, what you get. The fall off here, you can see how quickly it changes right into that belt section. So watch out for that. You can still reform, but again, that purely FK is a bit of a bummer. And if I look at all the other controllers, just to double check, there you have offset controls, everything, but I haven't seen anything or on the outside in terms of a spline control. And I checked before, so I want to check again that I don't see anything while I'm recording here. That's completely off. So I will also potentially bring that up with the riggers. But that's just me, that's my preference, and I'm gonna leave it at that. That is an interesting process. That is the rig. If you have used it, let me know in the comments. Curious what you think. If you have any other thoughts about the rig, of course, any updates I will put in the pinned comment if there are any immediate updates. Don't forget, if you want to see more rig updates, check out my channel. I have all kinds of videos, including rig reviews. As you can see, there's a bunch of stuff that I reviewed already, and all of the rigs that I'm collecting are on my Animation Buffet site. So that's it for Ninja, which is a free rig. Go check it out, and thank you for watching.